Canada has no choice but to retaliate with a measured, perfectly reciprocal, dollar-for-dollar response. And we will do so. We act in close collaboration with our like-minded partners in the EU and Mexico. They too are your allies, and they share our astonishment and our resolve. Je vais répéter cela pour les Canadiennes et Canadiens à la maison. L'idée que nous puissions poser une menace pour votre sécurité, les Américains, est plus qu'absurde. C'est nuisible. Les surtaxes de 232 imposées par les États-Unis sont illégales selon les règles commerciales de l'OMC et de l'ALENA. Elles sont du protectionnisme pur et simple. Elles ne sont pas une réponse aux actions injustes prises par d'autres pays et qui ont mis l'industrie américaine en position de désavantage. Elles sont un exemple clair que les États-Unis veulent le beurre et l'argent du beurre. Et cela va à l'encontre de toutes les règles qu'ils ont pourtant aidé à écrire. Le Canada n'a pas autre choix que de riposter avec une réponse mesurée, parfaitement réciproque, dollar par dollar. Et c'est ce que nous ferons. Nous agissons en collaboration étroite avec nos partenaires qui partagent la même opinion, comme l'Union européenne et le Mexique. Eux aussi sont nos alliés et ils partagent notre étonnement et notre conviction. No one will benefit from this bigger-than-neighbor dispute. The price will be paid, in part, by American consumers and American businesses. And the price will also be paid by those who believe that a rules-based system is worth preserving. Since the end of the Second World War, we have built a system that promoted prosperity and prevented smaller and regional conflicts from turning into total war. We've built a system that championed freedom and democracy over authoritarianism and oppression. Canada, for one, is going to stand up in defense of that system. We will not escalate, and we will not back down. We remember a time when the United States believed great international projects like the Marshall Plan or the reconstruction of Japan were the path to lasting peace, when America believed its security and prosperity were bolstered by the security and prosperity of other nations. Indeed, that America could only be truly safe and prosperous when its allies were too. This vision, the greatest generation's vision, was crucially dependent on the rules-based international order and the post-war institutions built to maintain it. It was based upon the willingness of all, especially the strongest, to play by the rules and be bound by them. It depended on the greatest countries of the world giving up, collectively, on the idea that might made right. Now, the Second World War was over 70 years ago. It is reasonable to ask whether our grandparents' hard-won wisdom still applies today. I am certain that it does, and for some new reasons. After the devastation of the Second World War, the United States was the unquestioned colossus, accounting alone for half of the world's economy. Today, the US economy stands at just a quarter of the world's. Together, the EU, Canada, and Japan, your allies in the G7 and beyond, account for just a little bit more. China, meanwhile, produces nearly 20% of the world's GDP, and in our lifetimes, its economy is set to become the world's largest. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Americans, Canadians, and Europeans are much richer and healthier and live longer than our grandparents did. The rise of the rest has been a chapter in the story of our own increased prosperity. And it's only natural that the 85% of people who live outside the industrialized West should, over time, account for a greater and growing share of the world's wealth. But that shift leaves the Western liberal democracies with a dilemma. How shall we behave in a world we no longer dominate? One answer is to give up on the rules-based international order, to give up on the Western alliance, and to seek to survive in a Metternichian world defined not by common values, mutually agreed upon rules, and shared prosperity, but rather by a ruthless struggle between the great powers, governed solely by the narrow, short-term, and mercantilist pursuit of self-interest. Canada could never thrive in such a world. But you, still the world's largest economy, may be tempted. That, of course, is your sovereign right. But allow me, as your friend, to make the case that America's security, amid the inexorable rise of the rest, lies in doubling down on a renewed rules-based international order. It lies in working alongside traditional allies, like Canada, and alongside all of the younger democracies around the world, from the Americas to Africa to Asia to the former Soviet Union, who are so keen to join us and who yearn for leadership. You may feel today that your size allows you to go mano a mano with your traditional adversaries and be guaranteed to win. But if history tells us one thing, it is that no one nation's preeminence is eternal. That is why the far wiser path and the more enduring one is to strengthen our existing alliance of liberal democracies, to hold the door open to new friends, to countries that have their own troubled past, such as Tunisia, Senegal, Indonesia, Mexico, Botswana, or Ukraine, to reform and renew the rules-based international order that we have built together, and in so doing, to require that all states, whether democratic or not, play by these common rules. This is the difficult truth. As the West's relative might inevitably declines, now is the time when, more than ever, we must set aside the idea that might is right. Now is the time for us to plant our flag on the rule of law, so that the rising powers are induced to play by these rules too. To explain my faith in you, in America, let me remind you of the city on the hill Ronald Reagan evoked in his farewell speech in 1989. It was a tall, proud city built on rocks stronger than oceans, wind-swept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace, a city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors, and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get there. This city, open to trade, open to immigrants, speaks to Canada's values too. Indeed, these are the values of liberal democracy. These values are under attack from outside our walls. Most corrosively, even inside the shining city, some have begun to doubt them. My country, Canada, believes in these values. We are ready to defend them and the rules-based international order that unites all of the world's cities on the Hill. Our friends among the world's democracies, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, and here in the Americas, are shoulder to shoulder with us. We all know we will be strongest with America in our ranks, and indeed in the lead. But whatever this great country's choice will turn out to be, let me be clear that Canada knows where it stands, and we will rise to this challenge. Thank you.